Very kind of you. All right. Well, usually when I come in and do something, it has to do with the ritual aspect of being a Wiccan. And this time I thought, rather than rehash some of the things that you've probably heard several times by now, I would go off in a little bit different direction. It is the vernal equinox, which of course for all of us is, you know, completely evident outside. When I woke up this morning, it couldn't have been any greener, I think, if it tried, when we've had that lovely rain overnight and everything is just, you know. It's a little bit different for us in Florida, of course, because we're a little bit warmer than our ancestors from whom we draw so much of our traditions, and the wheel of the year, as we call it. But because I've been studying more about Celtic traditions and so forth over the last 4 or 5 years, I guess, I thought it would be kind of fun and different to explore the idea of the energy of dragons and what is a dragon in Celtic thought. And so there's a couple of things that we need to think about when we're talking about Celts. First of all, it wasn't a particular race of people, as I'm sure many of you know. Ancient Celts were various tribespeople, and they're a mystery to us now to a great extent, but they once ranged across the width and breadth of Europe, from the forests of Germany to the hills of northern Italy. And probably the greatest concentration of Celtic peoples was in Scotland and Ireland and England. And the Celts of Great Britain are what most modern people think of when we hear that word Celt. But in truth, they were a people who spread out from one end of Europe to the other and left their mark on the face of that continent. And then, of course, on our ancestors who came over on the boat of one sort or another. So ancient Celts didn't really see time the way that we do. In our Western mind, in our Western world, time marches on, everything is pretty linear. And although we certainly understand that, you know, we have a new year every year and we have the same months every year, generally speaking, the Western mind moves in a linear fashion. And they just apparently didn't think that way. They totally understood it as a cyclical situation in which people came and went, depending on when they were born and when they died. They came from one side of the world to the other side of the world, back and forth, basically between two parallel universes. And they understood time as what we call the wheel of the year. But that it wasn't just the year per se, but a giant wheel in which all things are constantly turning. As a Wiccan person, when we think about the wheel of the year, it gives us a way to plan and kind of deal with some of our issues, whatever kind of life issues we might be working on or things that we want to accomplish. And it's kind of nice to think about the wheel of the year as a way for us to just kind of be able to jump on like a carousel that's forever spinning and just jump in there and, okay, I've got to work on this issue, and where am I at? It's the vernal equinox. Okay, it's time for growth. It's time for putting forth energy and moving forward with whatever plans I have or whatever issues I might be dealing with, and find ways to be constructive. And to move away from that time in the winter when we're more contemplative and more withdrawn. So we're moving forward along with nature, and it's perfectly natural. But what I thought was kind of neat was, of course, everybody's familiar with the concept or the idea of a dragon, I'm sure. But again, our westernized version of the dragon is a little bit, it's more focused on evil, quite truthfully, because of course we have, you know, St. George and the dragon and St. Michael and all the rest of them. But the dragon in Celtic world, pre-Christian history, was much different from the dragon that we think of now. So kind of try to get rid of the idea of a dragon as a horrible creature, and come along with me on this little journey. Druids, as you may know, were considered the lawgivers. They were the intellectuals, basically. Teachers, lawgivers, and people who understood how nature worked, how things were spread out in the land around them, how energy moved, and they were consulted regularly for their information. So Druids and dragons and Celts are all together in this little thing. They're inextricably linked, if you will, by the bands of power that we think of as the energy movement throughout the planet. Our planet, I'm sure you guys have heard of like power lines or parallel ley lines that go across the earth, right? All right, so here we go. Druids and Celtic dragons are familiar to a modern mind, but not maybe in the way that we should see them. Druids were priests, they were seers, they engaged with the cosmic on a daily basis. They pitted their knowledge against the force of the mystic energies which the Celts believed permeated the land. They would pinpoint the best places to till soil, or carve stone, or build a home, and show people places to avoid. For the Celt, dragons, although possibly deadly and very frightening, represented the continuation of life and health. They were omens of good harvest and a year of plenty. Druids were ones who found dragons and interpreted their meaning for a given group of Celts. For the ancient people, everything hummed and sparked with the lightning of the gods. Where dragons walked, the lightning was visible, and where druids indicated, the lightning was controllable for the good of the Celtic people. There are numerous references to dragons in Celtic mythology. Most cultures considered the dragon a benevolent dweller of caves, lakes, and the inner earth. In ancient times, it was a symbol of wealth and was also associated with the power of the elements, particularly the earth, but also the treasure of the subconscious mind. Dragons often appear in varieties such as a water serpent, worm-shaped beast, as well as the more common winged depiction that we frequently think of. The dragon represents the supernatural forces that guard the great secrets and treasures of the universe. Now, going back to our parallel universe, you might be familiar with stories of people who wander into fairyland and then they're unable to get back out. This is the land of dreams. It's the land of the subconscious and of death. And most of us, we might be able to permeate that veil occasionally, but it's best not to stay too long. And I have a little story from a book which I've been studying for some time, which is called The Mabinogion. And it describes the pantheon of Welsh gods and all kinds of adventures and things that go on. But one that sticks in my mind is the story of Pwyll, who visits the other side, which is called Awen. He visits for a year and a day, trading places with the Lord of Awen. The Lord of the other side tells him he cannot make love to his wife, so for a year and a day he avoids her, which she finds alarming and annoying. Finally, the time passes and they trade back. Pwyll's kingdom is beautiful and well cared for, and the people in his lands have increased. True to his word, he has not touched the lady, and the Lord has gifted him well. There are numerous ways to interpret this story, of course, but on the surface, I find it fascinating just for the lack of fear. It is so different and beautiful of an encounter story between the land of the living and the land of the dead. It's not a place of cold or pain or punishment. It's a beautiful place where time is irrelevant. If you get caught, like Rip Van Winkle, you could wake up hundreds of years later and be pretty sad because everything you knew is gone. But if you're in harmony with nature, if you're in harmony with your soul, if you have pure intention, you can return and prosper from your journey. And to me, this speaks of the power of meditation and other spiritual journeying that we might undertake, and return refreshed with new insights from our own subconscious. How are we accessing that, and how can we use that energy? And, you know, of course, we all have people that we've lost. We all have to spend time grieving and thinking about, you know, oh, well, no. But if we can find a way to give ourselves power back through those moments in time, we're using that power correctly, I guess you might say. The spring, especially now at the equinox, which of course is the balance of dark and light, we're right in between, is a very good time for spirit journeys. And the image of the dragon, the green dragon specifically, is powerful and a wonderful reminder of our own relationship to the land and the nature which is around us. I highly recommend walking or riding through some natural areas around here, and there's plenty, and spending just an hour or two relaxing and feeling that energy in your bones all around you. There is a certain cosmic sensibility to the myths and legends of the Celtic people, a sense of things being bigger than they seem. Power flows beneath the skin of the world to the Celtic mind, accessible along the path of the dragon, the mouths of stones. It was Druids who could see it and interpret it for their brother Celts. And they followed the lines of power, showed them where to build villages and sanctified places. And, excuse me, the most powerful of all of the Celtic Druid animal symbols, the dragon represents the whole of creation, if you will. The Celts associate dragon with elements, as I mentioned. Each element is governed by specific energies and qualities and is ruled by either a feminine or a masculine aspect of divinity. So air, for example, is a masculine-ruled element. The elder spirit, associated with the aspect of the old man. As part serpent and part bird, the dragon symbolizes the union of the beneficial elements of water and air, of matter and spirit. The fiery breath of the green dragon was believed to purify and give new life, and has the feminine aspect to it, of growth. To the Celts, the dragon was a creature of a parallel world, played an important role in their religion. It is the gatekeeper to the other worlds. It is a guardian of wealth. Dragons are frequently found in churches, both outside to ward off evil and inside, often in the company of the green man, who is symbolic of the god in his vegetation form, which we'll get more into that in a second. Dragon has been a creature of myth and legends for centuries throughout the world. In every continent of the world, the dragon chiefly represents the principle of fertility. The creation of earth and the appearance of life came about as a result of the combination of the elements. So the first living cell was born out of the earth, fertilized by the sky, by wind and water, and from this union of yin and yang, we've sprung the seed, which produced the dragon, or the process of life, and every year this same process takes place. So this is all kinds of stuff that's going through the Celtic mind, and it's a little bit intense for us to try to wrap our heads around because of all of our own little ideas about what these things represent. But the more I study it, the more interesting it becomes. And it seems strange probably to think of yin and yang, the feminine, masculine, which seems so Asian, and when we talk about Celts, but the terms might be Oriental, but the concept is not really. The ancient practice of feng shui in China contributed to the harmony of the landscape and the people. Geomancy was practiced for a long time and still is in ancient Britain, which is basically figuring out, dowsing essentially where were the best places to do various activities. When an ancient Celt, and especially Druids, surveyed the land for an activity, they would speak of the lay of the land, the L-E-Y, lay of the land. Today we use the same term, although it has a related but different meaning. When we speak of the lay of the land, we often picture exactly how the hills roll or the shape of the river as it flows, more of a concrete concept of how this land is laying out actually. But to the ancient Celt, the lay of the land meant how the magic or cosmic forces flowed through and affected that area, or how the area affected those forces. The Celts believed that dragons were creatures of this parallel world, and their power and presence could affect the lay of the land. The places associated with the dragon legends are most often nerve centers of seasonal fertility and appear to coincide with sites of ancient sanctity, such as Stonehenge. So that's kind of interesting. The path of the dragons, called a vein, was critical to the flow of energy or to this lay of the land. If there was a spot that a dragon crossed often, a spot where the veins crossed, or a spot where the dragon would stop to rest, that became a spot of heightened power. Stonehenge is thought to be one of those places because so many of these ley lines come together in that particular area. And people have been fascinated by it and profess to feel that energy even now. Go there on purpose just to do that. The ancient Druids believed that the earth itself was kind of like the body of a dragon. Built stone circles on these power nodes of the body. They believed dragons connected us to the earth's magnetism, to healing waters, and the Anglo-Saxon word dragon is derived from the Greek word meaning to see clearly. They believed dragons had a gift of vision, wisdom, and prophecy. Again, going back to the idea of your spirit journeying, your meditation, your time within yourself, learning about yourself. Dragons were considered guardians of knowledge and wisdom, and in Celtic, the word for chief was Pendragon. So that's kind of interesting. So a person had to be not only strong, but intelligent, wise to be a chief. So, how do we use this knowledge? What can we take from the Celtic concept of the dragon as a fertility symbol of leadership and the subconscious? We come back to the wheel of the year. This life is one of many that we will experience because Wiccans believe in reincarnation. Each life is a learning experience. Our goals are to remember as quickly as possible what we learned before and add to that store before we pass on. Many Wiccans use the concept of the wheel of the year to work through life issues and incorporate numerous symbols into that work, depending on what speaks to us. Certainly, many people work with the tarot and other systems that have lots of rich symbolism. We can ponder our needs in the dark times. We can set our goals in late winter and go about our plans to activate those goals in the spring and summer, and then take time to fall to evaluate and make adjustments as needed. The wheel of time is quite different from the concept of linear time, which we take for granted. At any time, the person can enter the wheel and work with the energies of the season. So again, right now, obviously, it's growth. And the myth cycle that we use is one of an ever-present goddess and a god figure who experiences all phases of life, including death. We have moved now from rebirth of the god the sun, the male principle, at Yule, to the reemergence into the world of the goddess and the god at Imbolc, or Groundhog Day, also known as Lady Day. At that time, the eternal goddess, who we call Caradwyn in the Celtic tradition, transforms back to her maiden self. She is waking from her slumberous time with her newborn son, and he is now an active and joyous boy. 1 month later, she and the god have both grown to youth, and they move to a sacred marriage phase, which is at this time the vernal equinox. The focus is on fast growth, fertility, the greening of the earth. Soon it will be May Day, which is time to celebrate virility. And then midsummer, which is the longest day of the year, the turning of the wheel from light gain to light loss. And soon the harvests begin after that. So the god is cut down sacrificially, so to speak, to feed the people. He dies and goes to that parallel universe to await the call of his lady again at Yule. The god Cernunnos follows this pattern eternally. He is the embodiment of grain and other foodstuffs that we require to live. He represents our own mortality. He is a figure of hope because his rebirth each year signifies that all is well with the world and life goes on. As such, he must also experience death and rebirth. He is both the Lord of creation, and he is reborn through the everlasting abundance of the earth, the goddess or female principle. His journey on the wheel dictates the general energy tide prevalent in nature. So, here in Florida, we're 2 to 3 weeks or maybe a little more ahead of those colder realms, which most of us come from. I know in Boston they're supposed to get snow today. Sad. Well, good for them. That's great. And as it should be for them. So, of course, for them right now, they're like, oh my God, a crocus, you know? So for us, it's, you know, all the oak trees have dropped their leaves and there's pollen everywhere, and it's a little intense compared to what perhaps our families up north are going through right now, which is more shoveling. But still, we can relate to the general wheel of time wherever we are. That's the beauty of it. Whatever state the gods are in, wherever you are, you can recognize the beauty and majesty of nature on the wheel. When I get on that wheel, I try to use the energy inherent to release my inner dragon and start projects that I've been thinking about during the winter. Pay better attention to my diet, do more journaling, so on, things like that. The time of withdrawal now decreases, and the time of engagement with others, with your career, with your spiritual journey increases, along with the light energy, which is hitting our part of the world at this time. Communicate more, write more, create more, sing more, meditate more, simplify more, whatever your thing is. Grab hold of the dragon's tail and set your sights on the lay of the land and begin to move forward toward fulfillment. And as sure as the sun rises, a time for rest and reflection will come again later on. You can bank on that. Thank you.